Welcome to this month's issue of the magazine programme where the going gets tough. We're starting with action from the 1996 World Enduro Championship. Brief look back at the final round in Germany. We go to Schlefflenz in Germany as well for coverage of their spectacular cross-country challenge, round 4 of the 96 Off-Road Challenge. And the final round of the International German Supermoto Cup 96 and highlights from the year's action. But we kick off in Burg in Germany, former part of the Eastern German part of the reunified country, round 6 of the World Enduro Championship. The final round of this year's series and still wide open in all classes. So before we go to the final, let's take a look back through the season's action, see who are the top men and how they got into those positions. Starting the season in Luso in Portugal, beautiful surroundings, temperate climate and a friendly population. And the course, always one for a high standard and a great place to start off this year's championship. In the 125 class, world champion Sylvain Petteri picks up where he left off last season with victory on day 1 in class, but Italy's Giorgio Grasso fights back in top form and he is going to be a very likely championship contender. Giovanni Sala, 250 class world champion, leading the event on day 1, but the determined efforts of Englishman Paul Edmondson to catch him underline the fact that he's going to have a tough year. Shane Watts has come up from down under to take on the best that the world has to offer. He has won everything that's worth winning in Australia and has come to Europe to show his mettle. And Anders Ericsson, the reigning 400cc world champion, won the title by 1 point, so there's going to be an all-out battle between him and this man, Mario Rinaldi of Italy. But in the second day of this event, Rinaldi injures his foot, which will rather hamper his progress. Frenchman Christian Boulet ends up surprising everybody by taking victory in the 350 class. And in the big 4-stroke class, Kari Tainen has run out of serious opposition. Runner-up Kacianak couldn't keep up with him this year. Day 2, and Giorgio Grasso riding on to victory on these high-speed, fast-flowing stages in the 125s. Paul Edmondson, second in the 250 class on day 1, third on day 2. And Giovanni Sala, the champion, forced to settle for second place overall on day 2. And the big mover, the big shaker is Shane Watts from Australia. Wins the 250 class, and the established favourites starting to look very strongly at this young man from Australia. Christian Boulet making big waves in the 400 class, fastest on day 1, and on the second day, despite this crash, manages to come in second quickest as well, and that is enough to hold on to the overall first position. World champ Anders Ericsson takes the fastest time on day 2, but not enough to take the overall lead. And Kari Tainen, unchallenged in the 500 fours, and on both days, fastest. So after round 1, Grasso, Sala, Boulet and Tainen are the leaders. Staying where the weather is warmest early on in the season, round 2, Vigo in Spain, and this will prove to be the toughest event of the year. Not on the eye, but on the riders and on the machinery. Grueling trial sections, very tough time limits on stages as well, and you can see how much the riders are going to struggle. Many of them ran out of time purely on the stages, trying to make up time on these very tricky stages. And among the riders injured on falls on the first day, the world champion in the 125 class, Sylvain. And anybody who makes it to the end of this stage certainly knows that they have done a superb job. Not just in terms of the rider's ability, but the preparation of the bike to get them to the top of the slope. In the 125 class, Giorgio Grasso takes victory not only on the first day, but also on the second, reinforcing his position as favourite. Paul Edmondson has spent a lot of winter practice time in Spain and is also competing in the Spanish Nationals, and so he feels right at home in these conditions, wins his class on both days, taking the lead in the 250 championship. And having started his career as a trials rider, no wonder he makes this look far easier than it really is. So what of the Aussie? Well, he's doing superbly as well. Shane Watts comes in third and then second on day one and day two, maintaining his very impressive run of form among the world leaders in the 250 class. And Giovanni Sala from Italy, well, he manages to take second and then third place on the 2 days. But at the end of his 4 days of competition, the results show that he is not able to dominate the field the way he has done in the last couple of years. In the 400 class, Anders Ericsson takes victory on day one, but on day two falls into a crevice and ends up only 7th. His main rival, Rinaldi, does his best despite an injury, manages to come in 6th, but that's not enough to turn the tables in his favour. Christian Boulay, meanwhile, maintains his lead by riding with consistency, 2nd and 3rd places on the 2 stages. And in the Big Bang of 400s, the 504 class, again, Kari Tainen comes in first as expected. 4 wins in the 4 legs so far. And so, after 2 rounds of the championship, still Grasso leads the 125s. Edmondson moves ahead in the 250s. Boulay and Tainen retain their overall lead. Again, staying as close to the sunny Mediterranean as we can, moving to Mauriac in France for the 3rd round of the championship. And as expected from previous years, deep, deep mud, making constant rerouting the competitors an absolute necessity. And with a little bit of a lottery, Giorgio Grasso suffering his first setback. Technical problems with the machinery preventing him from coming in higher than 5th, still maintaining his first overall placing on the championship table. But fellow Italian Fausto Scovolo is able to move up within 3 points. Giovanni Sala takes first on day one, but on day two he suffers one of the worst crashes of his career and finishes only 6th overall, and this forces him to relinquish his lead in the table to Edmondson. Mario Rinaldi has more or less recovered from his injury in the first round, and this weekend he and Ericsson both end up taking a 1st and a 2nd apiece. Kari Tainen is forced to drop out for the day, the first time ever in his career, so Peter Janssen takes victories on both days in the 500, and that moves Janssen closer to the 500 leader. But as you can see, the other championship positions exactly as so. So round 4, Bobbio in Italy, dry rocky paths and fast cross-country tests make up the going for this 4th round of the World Enduro Championship. And a new name really coming to prominence in the 125s, Italian Fausto Scovolo. Scovolo's been around for years and has competed on and off in several world championships, but this looks like his breakthrough year. The first day victory for him, plus an ignition problem on Grasso's machine, propels Scovolo into the lead of the championship. Paul Edmondson in the 250s is only able to go 3rd and 6th despite superb performance from him, and he is absolutely disappointed and very surprised indeed, but Italy, as he says, is so different from the Spanish stages, and that drops him out of the overall championship lead. Giovanni Sala, riding on home turf, wins the stages on both days and wins back the number 1 position in the table ahead of his British rival. Anders Ericsson initially 3rd, but Husqvarna has teammate Arnaldi Nicoli slow down, a tactic that gives him 2 additional points, putting the Swede up into 2nd, and those could prove to be absolutely critical come the end of the season. Mario Rinaldi takes victory, though, on day one in the class. On day two, though, the situation is reversed, and Ericsson beats Rinaldi into second place. He's 7 points behind in the table now, after that injury at the beginning of the year. In the 500 fours, Fabio Farioli is back riding again for the first time since a spinal column injury sustained in a race in Bologna last year left him almost completely crippled. He is still slightly restricted in movement, but you wouldn't know it from his performance on the bike, winning his class on day two. And Kari Tainen winning on day one despite a severe case of stomach flu, very nasty on the bike. And on day two, he comes in behind Farioli and Janssen, just adding a couple extra points to his position out front in class. Peter Janssen has been running very strongly throughout the French event and here in Italy, and goes on to take second place on both days. Tainen's lead, 10 points only in the table, but it is unlikely that Janssen will be able to catch the Finn unless something extraordinary happens. So Scovolo now leads in the 125s and Sala in the 250s. Moving across into Slovakia for round 5, Košice in Slovakia, the beautiful city, the home close to the border with the Ukraine. And although day one, as you can see, is very dry, day two will be wet and muddy. In the 125 class, Roman Michalek takes victory on both days, establishing himself firmly in second position in the table. Fausto Scovolo has to settle for second both days, but he still manages to keep his overall lead, in part at least, thanks to the fact that Giorgio Grasso can manage no better than fifth. At the start of the season, nobody would have guessed that state of affairs. Paul Edmondson wins his category on both days, beating Sala by a large margin, and that championship is seesawing all over the place. Edmondson seems to be getting better and better as the season progresses, and his third World Championship title looks to be a possibility. Sala crashes on day one, only coming in 8th, and on day two in 6th. Edmondson leaving him behind, a 15-point margin now separating them, and it's going to be tough for the Italian to check his progress. Shane Watts, second on day one, but mud is not one of his strong points, and on day two he has a harder time of it, coming in third. Mario Rinaldi just 1 point behind in the table and looking to close the gap, but Anders Eriksson's not willing to cooperate, and he increases his lead to 7 points. It's all still wide open in the 400s. Last season's runner-up in the 500s, Jaroslav Kaczmarek, was forced to sit this season out for lack of a proper sponsor, and he's just riding in this round purely for the enjoyment on his most local round, taking victory on both days. Peter Janssen can't do better than 5th on either day, but that's not so big a problem because Kari Tainen is out due to illness, and all of a sudden the Swede moves up into 1st in the table with a 12-point lead, and as long as he doesn't blow it and crack under pressure, he could now win that 500 championship. So Scovolo, Edmondson now leads the 250s again, Ericsson and Janssen, the two Swedes leading the big four-stroke classes. And so to the 6th and final round in Burg in Germany. Now no real technical problems in the course, and Fausto Scovolo playing it safe in the 125s. The 2nd and 4th are good enough for him to clinch the 1996 World 125cc Championship. Second in the series goes to Czech Roman Michalek, riding on an Italian license. And in the 250 class, Paul Edmondson is playing it very safe as well. No chances, 3rd and 4th are good enough for him to take his 3rd World Championship title. And to think that some had already written him off after he got the cold shoulder from Husqvarna and switched to the gas setup. Giovanni Sala, well, he's a little bit out of the running here on both days, leaving Edmondson to romp home without any problems. And the Italian manages to take 2nd behind a new shooting star, Francis Eric Bernard. Sala not only loses his title, but it's been made fairly obvious to him that there are a lot of new stars on the horizon, That'll make regaining it next year harder than ever. Australia's Shane Watts comes in a strong third in the 250 class of the 1996 World Championship. Declares that he won't be settling for anything less than that next year. Fourth overall goes to Eric Bernard, and here's a man to be taken seriously as well. Mario Rinaldi in the 400s comes first on both days, but Anders Ericsson comes second, which is enough to make the title his. And for the second year in a row, Super Mario, as his friends call him, comes up just 1 point short of winning the World Championship title. What does Rinaldi have to do? Well, Anders Ericsson takes his second World Championship title in the 400 class. That is signed, sealed and delivered. And if the Swede's doing well, Finn Karitainen has been having a tough time since the French round. Problems with the bike and with illness robbing him of a good chance at the title. And it's just not his year. Peter Janssen riding his Huseberg on his way to his first World Championship title. And in the 125 and the 500 class, 2 riders who started the season as underdogs have wrapped it up as world champions. Here are the final standings. Fausto Scovolo wins the 125s. Paul Edmondson from Great Britain, the 250s. Anders Ericsson from Sweden, the 350s. And Peter Janssen, the Swede, the 500s. We'll be back. Well, now we'll look at the Cross Country Challenge, round 4 of the Off-Road Challenge Cup for 1996. And based at Schlefflenz in Germany, on the southern edge of the Oldenwald, for those of you who know Germany, gently rolling hilly area, and a very medieval feel to the whole place. And this is the home, in fact, of the world's smallest brewery, as recognised by the Guinness Book of Records. Very laid-back feel to this country town, and the feeling that craftsmanship and the knowledge of generations has not left them. And into this quiet pastoral scene comes the 4th round of the Off-Road Challenge 1996, the Cross Country Challenge. This is open essentially to off-road bikes, to quads and to sidecars. The entry limited to 150 riders and a wide variety of different machinery. Scrutineering has been limited mainly to focusing on oil links, noise pollution and fairly standard safety measures. Other than that, there are no restrictions on the format of the machine. Anyone and everyone welcome to undertake the challenge. Before the main event got underway, a motocross event of a different kind. It's a different age group, 4 to 8-year-olds. Now, don't let the small size and the childish looks of these competitors make you think they're just going to potter around. It's daggers drawn and psychological advantages very much to the fore. These guys are deadly serious. Of course, all the groupies wanting to give you a kiss is a bit of a pain, but there you go. And if they're starting this young in life, who knows? One of these young guys may well turn out to be a future world champion. Starting early on the machines is certainly the best way to go about it. And when we're old and grey, we'll be watching these guys in the prime of their lives. They may look like Disney cartoon characters with the huge helmets on their little bodies, but the 2.5 horsepower machines, as you can see, are quick enough and the circuit demanding enough to make this a very serious event for these guys, demanding a lot of concentration and no small amount of ability. As I said, don't think that they're just out for a bit of a laugh. Of course, some of the doting parents, for which read future multimillionaire team managers, are taking it a lot more seriously than perhaps they really ought. Got his other son there on the stopwatch. And very competitive running here. Endurance, no small part of this for the kids, but also for the parents as well, of course. Running across the course, bellowing at your son, and then running back to the other side to bellow at him as he comes out of the corner. Keeps their blood pressure nice and high. So those guys well deserving their rest, I would say. Putting on a very good display. And now to the main event, the starting lineup. 150 riders, as we said, bikes, quads and sidecars, and can you believe it, a Le Mans type start. It's a 3-hour enduro event, an off-road terrain, and basically the further you go around the 3.5 mile, 5.5 kilometre course, then the higher up the standings you are. 1 o'clock, the cannon fires, and 150 riders hope that it's going to go on the first kick. And for some of them, it does. For some of them, there's going to be a lot of bouncing up and down on the starter before they get away. So away they stream, some of them already halfway out of sight, and still the more recalcitrant machinery having problems starting. And it's like any marathon run really, a bit of a sprint for those on the front, and for everybody else, a major traffic jam trying to sort out your pace with relation to everyone else. As the field streams up the first hill and off into the countryside, the natural speed of the competitors will eventually start to sort them out into some sort of order. And this huge ground the Schlefflenz Motorsport Club has access to. They run motocross event, World Motocross, World Enduro Championship events here as well. So there's an awful lot of know-how involved in the organisation of this. See the sidecar combinations having a bit more trouble getting through than the single machines. The quads starting to hold everybody up as well. Yeah, you need a bit of a run up at humps like that. At the back it's all pretty confused, but at the front with the riders starting to spread out. And here comes the first lap leader, Christian Pfeiffer. A little clearer picture of what is actually happening starts to emerge. He's comfortably in the lead of the event and also currently leading the Off-Road Challenge Cup points standings, appropriately enough. Not far behind, the next little gaggle of 5 or 6. But of course, in 3 hours, a lot can happen. In 3 hours, this lot might sort themselves out. Of course, it may take 3 hours for that to happen. But the leaders will be around in another few minutes, so the tail enders, or these are probably the midfielders in the traffic jam, really need to get themselves a little bit more organised. And this is such a tight hairpin. As you can see, part of the motocross course there, that's a bowl corner. But nothing like that holding up Christian Pfeiffer, not yet at least, until he starts to catch them. And he's finding his way through the deep mud. Goodness knows what's going to happen when the midfielders arrive there. Karl-Heinz Holtz, second position. And appropriate enough, he's second in the overall standings as well. Andreas Willmann is third. And a fairly large crowd of spectators around the mud hole for the understandably fairly obvious carnage that will ensue as soon as one major pack arrives. You just need one guy, like there at number 100, to get stuck, and the next 40 or 50 will all go straight in and stop. And once they stop, that's when it all starts to go wrong. And the mud holes like this really separate those who've got some idea of what's going on from those who are just out for fun. And the quads are going to be in big, bad trouble. He's safely through. And this is where nobody wants to be a marshal. They're even using the cranes to help get some of the machinery out. The crowd are getting exactly what they came for. Loads of people getting very, very muddy indeed. He seems to be digging in for another Cold War. As the crane helps winch out that quad. Oh, well, sending your bike over on its own may be one answer. The sidecar combo both getting out to shove. Once you lose momentum in these things, that's it. Oh, look, now he's having to wait for his passenger to hurry up and get on. Come on, they're all giving her the shout. Hurry up. Now, apparently among the organisers there was a big debate as to whether or not to put this muddy section into the course. Some question as to whether it might be a little bit dangerous. Somebody with his hand on the horn, that'll help. Well, some of the riders may not be enjoying it, but most of them seem to think it was a reasonable idea, and it's certainly very popular indeed with the crowd. And undoubtedly Germany's equivalent of Jeremy Beadle will be thoroughly enjoying the amateur video footage that comes from this particular section of the course. The big problem, of course, for the organisers is if the leading riders appear and there is some serious competition going on, and they have to sit and wait in the traffic queue, because there is a major queue starting to build up now. And that chap stopping to get himself untangled from the fence probably isn't helping much at all. And yet, some still manage to find a safe way through, while the others are being dug, winched, and pulled out. Well, there's no point in blaming the machine. Although, to be fair, air cooling when it's covered in glutinous mud like that is a little tricky, so he may be having problems of a fairly obvious nature. That marshal in the rather unappropriately chosen white t-shirt seems to be getting far more than his fair share of the mud, and I'm sure that guy had got extra traction there to get him through. Doesn't seem to be able to get the bike started again though, number 102. Still, slowly but surely, if they get stuck enough times, the riders will learn, hopefully, how to get out of it. That's probably not the best way. They really need a little more speed. Now that's much more like it. Mind you, he does have a clear view in front of him, and so he can keep the momentum up. And the top riders finding their way through without much assistance. That was Hans-Georg Grieser running in 8th position. But for some of the others, the crane is the only way out. Well, our cameraman clearly fully occupied here, but just to make sure that we remember it's not all about finding your way through a mud hole for 3 hours. There are also plenty of stretches of high-speed riding here on this course. And this is one of those. Number 7 there, Christian Pfeiffer took the lead right from the start, but 2 laps later, number 132 there, we just see the back of him, Karl-Heinz Holtz is right on his heels. But away from the lead, it's really just enjoying the event and survival here that's the important thing. Nobody apart from the leaders has the faintest idea what position they're in, and if you can catch and pass anybody, if it's for 143rd as opposed to 144th, who cares? The main thing seems to be to keep going as quickly as you can and sort out your problems as efficiently as possible. lap scorer's a complete nightmare, but that man is now out front. Karl-Heinz Holtz, 1:32. He's passed Christian Pfeiffer, number 7, and starting to pull away, trying to put as much distance, of course, between himself and his opponent behind. But it doesn't all go smoothly, I'm afraid, for Karl-Heinz. 6 laps in, he picks up a flat, and drops back into 25th. Then he picks up the pace, working his way back up into 9th place, before unbelievably picking up another flat tyre in the same place, dropping him back down again to 16th. At the end of the race, his reward for all that hard work is 4th overall. That helps him hold on to 2nd overall in the Off-Road Challenge position. Christian Pfeiffer, we saw there, running into difficulties with his fuel, and made the mistake of leaving the circuit to get it sorted out by his mechanics, and therefore he was disqualified. Well, he manages to retain his overall position in the championship stakes because of Holtz's problem, but Wolfgang Koch, who we saw there, took the lead of the event. Still with an hour and a half to go. Helmut Meyer, there he is, 14th overall in the tables, but running 2nd on the event. Right at the end of the 3 hours, he too picked up a flat tyre, but despite that stroke of bad luck, he was able to come in 5th overall. Ludwig Roy, another German rider, sporadic World Enduro Championship participant, running 3rd until Meyer got his flat, and then ended up moving up into 2nd. But the leader, Wolfgang Koch, coming comfortably through the mud hole, as if all the others have absorbed the filth with their clothing, perhaps. Not all of it. Some are still going to manage to get stuck no matter how dry it gets. So the first cross-country challenge in Schlefflenz, a resounding success for the competitors and for the spectators. Wolfgang Koch rides to victory. The final round of the Off-Road Challenge Cup will be the Elbe Challenge, and Offroad Magazin will cover that event. But for Schlefflenz, here are the results. Koch winning from Ludwig Willmann. Karl-Heinz Holtz there in 4th position, just ahead of Helmut Meyer. And we'll be back with more off-road action in a moment. Welcome to Hockenheim in Germany and the start of the Supermoto German International Championship season. Now, in addition to the competition, these guys like to play to the crowd a great deal. On their Supermoto machines, they put on a spectacular show, not just when the checkered flag is beckoning, but also just to get the crowd livened up before the real action kicks off. Wouldn't it be great to see Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher performing like that before the Grand Prix in their Formula One cars? But at Hockenheim, the season opener, 30 riders, all of course with a theoretically equal chance of the championship. Number 13, Stéphane Chaumont, a guest from the French Championship, revealing himself very early on as a wild card, pulling away from the German aces like Harold Ott, number 1 on the Honda, and Mike Appel, appropriately all in green on the number 3 Kawasaki. Chaumont riding superbly on this circuit here at the Hockenheim Ring. 2/3 of it on tarmac and 1/3 in the dirt. And then celebrating by saving front tyre wear. Frenchman coming to home territory and showing the Germans how it shall be done. Change of scenery to Heilbronn and steady rain for round 2 of the German series. And really conditions best forgotten. Especially for Boris Chambon, Stéphane's brother. He comes from Avignon in the south of France. They do indeed both come from Avignon. Conditions like this, they're not very keen on. Nor 2, German Achim Trinkner. That was him going down there on number 6. A very tight circuit with 2 sections of loose in among the tarmac. But an excellent start for number 1, Harold Ott, the indoor cross champion, or former indoor cross champion. Immediately taking the lead on a track that, as you can see, has dried out since practice. Right behind him, Mike Apple's Kawasaki. And Apple battling very hard indeed for the lead here. Slips past Ott. And either a little wave to say thanks for not nerfing me off, or adjusting his helmet. I think perhaps a quick sign to his rival. But Apple tangles with a back marker and loses his momentum, so Ott leads once more. And leads comfortably through to take the checkered flag. Apple in second. And Gilles Salvador on the right-hand side, we just saw celebrating, looking a little happier on the bike than he was. Harsewinkel and round 3. And even the sun-loving Chambon brothers from Avignon will love this high-speed circuit. Harold Ott having fun sliding, and this is Bert Gautschi, number 4. Really getting in some sideways action, getting the pegs right down. So 2 long, fast straights, making up the main part of the circuit here. It's around the outside, as you can see, and the infield section of a normal speedway track. So choking dust is going to greet everybody but the leader, and that is Boris Chambon, number 13. On his Husqvarna. Gilles Salvador, number 2, closing in. Bert Gautschi behind him. See Mike Apfel closing in on the leaders. And there goes Gautschi, Bert Gautschi. Mike Apfel getting his foot down in approved speedway style, and that allows him to pull up into a lead from Boris Chambon and Harold Ott. Ott taking a very tight line through the little chicane there, moving up into second, so Chambon goes down to 3rd. But Ott, try as he might, is unlikely to catch Apple. And again, winning in superb style. So Apple celebrates, Ott second, and Chambon in 3rd place. On the move again to Superbike country, to Grand Prix territory, Assen in Holland. And these guys, again, doubling up and helping each other out, keeping the crowd entertained with the fun and games before they get down to the main business. And on this Superbike weekend at Assen, a huge, vast crowd enjoying all their antics. This circuit, still only 2/3 tarmac and 1/3 loose, as in the regulations, but what tarmac they've got. Long, fast, super smooth ribbon of the Assen Grand Prix circuit, and then off into the loose they go. And these hand-cut slicks coping admirably with both conditions. Harold Ott and Mike Apfel alongside him, and this is going to be a battle between these 2 men all the way through. And it's absolutely no quarter given and none asked as Apple finds his way ahead. And Achim Trinkner, number 6, closing in third place. Side by side they go into the corners. Side by side they come out of the corners. And Trinkner watching it all from his ideal vantage point as they spear out onto the loose. Problems for Appel. He runs wide on the course. Ott hits him, and that leaves Trinkner instantly moving up from third to first place. And here we go again. Ott safely through. Appel runs wide, bounces across the track, and just loses it. Trying to find his way back on. So Trinkner wins. Appel second, and a rather disgruntled Harold Ott shakes his head as he comes home third. But they still manage to get some champagne down inside his leathers. Moving on to Großenheim, former military airfield, close to Dresden. And although the Russians have moved out, they didn't bother taking everything they brought with them. And some contrast between the relics of the Cold War, the grey concrete bunkers and the multi-day-glow colours of the Supermoto crews. I'm sure the Chambons would like to get the tyre heaters around themselves as well as on the machinery, but they got to heat up for practice. And this concrete airfield circuit, very tough indeed on the tyres. And wearing them out very quickly indeed, making it tricky on the off-road sections. Monsieur Chambon still feeling the cold while everybody else goes about their work. Tyre cutters, the mechanics, tyre heaters all in operation on these hand-cut slicks. But the chance once more for the big boys to show off their toys and keep the crowd delighted. Look at the guy on the right here. He is Jochen Bauer, and he's a rookie in the Super League who is going to make a big name for himself throughout the course of the season. And Ott, of course, and Appel really putting all their experience to good use. So, Großenheim, and now the serious stuff starts even. What am I talking about? Championship points at stake, and as soon as the race starts, it's all deadly serious. So, Ott leads, Appel second, Trinkner third, then Salvador, Chambon, and the rest streaming through behind them. Ott comes first through the very tight section, over the jump, Appel right behind him, Trinkner with them too. And these leading group, the battle between these top guys as fierce as ever. And Trinkner now really making a bid on number 6 to keep himself in that lead order all the way through. And as ever, it seems to be coming down to a battle here between Harold Ott and Mike Appel. Bit of motocross experience never hurts. Gilles Salvador we just saw there, and KTM star Beat Gauschke both have motocross and Paris-Dakar experience. And Salvador, number 2, puts that into good use to get past Appel. And Frenchman Chambon is closing up on them as well. So Ott out front on his own. And after Salvador crashes, Then it's left to the others to pick up the pieces and to pick up the chase. So there is the leader, taking the checkered flag. Mike Apple, only 3 points ahead, behind rather, of the leader, Harold Ott, in the championship. And still the joker in the pack. So, a week later, and the final round of the championship. That's Mike Apple. And Harold Ott, you just saw, hard at work. Achim Trinkner, unlikely to be challenged for third place. Saying, I'm fairly safe and it's down to the others to sort out the battle. Well, after they've finished with the bouncy castle, perhaps. Hard to imagine Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher in that situation, but there you go. These guys very much appealing to the public, not just out on the circuit as we've seen, not just with the spectator show-offs as well, but meeting the public. And entertainment, a very high part of the reason that they compete in this championship. All the riders, as you can see, being introduced before the event. Then, of course, putting themselves through their paces. Lots of last-minute preparations, I'm sure, among the crews, and this way of letting off steam just helps them before they get to the event. Harold Ott saying that despite the fact that it's a stock bike, the 60 horsepower output is something closer to 75 in the correct hands. He's not going to say how it gets to that stage, but it does so. So, 20 laps, away they go, and Harold Ott right out front with his tuning secrets, and Mike Apple well off course, getting pushed out very wide indeed. Ott in 5th place in the early going. Mike Apple having to work his way up from the midfield. That's very bad news indeed for him. Achim Trinkner outside the top 10 as well. But Apple making the best of a bad job at the start and really working his way up through the pack. This is Boris Chambon, closely following his countryman and Husqvarna team leader, Gilles Salvador. There's Salvador on 2. Those two leading the pack on the Huskies. Harold Ott, 3rd place. Tony Sedlacek on his 2-stroke KTM in 4th place overall. Achim Trinkner in 9th, so just inside the top 10. The leaders in among the back markers. Salvador leading from Chambon, and Ott there still in 3rd place, and that'll be enough for him to clinch the title if Mike Apple can't improve. But he's not sitting back and waiting for the title to come for him. He's really pushing hard. So too is Mike Apple. 6th position, but that's not good enough yet. He really has to get up and win the race. Boris playing a bit with the chasing pack, slowing down a little. And then catching back up to Salvador, the team leader. Ott and Sedlacek rather are following right behind. There they are. There is the leader, comfortably taking the checkered flag. Boris Chambon 2nd behind Gilles Salvador. Harold Ott, 3rd place. And Mike Apple out of luck for the championship. It was very close, finally said. I've had a lot of bad luck so far, so it's only fair that some good luck has come to me this year. And Mike Apple, disappointed? No, not really. I was third last year, second this year, so look out next year. Well, absolutely right. Those are the winners there at the final. Gilles Salvador. But Harold Ott taking the championship from Mike Apple and Achim Trinkner. Well, that's it from Off-Road Magazine from this month. We'll be back again at the end of November with more action from the off-road world. Until then, I'm Martin Haven saying bye-bye.